I'll run through here real quick. Oh, there we go, chapter 7. All right. We'll review 1 through 5 here on, well, it'd be helpful if I got on the right page. There we go. On page 16, here in chapter 7, did Paul contend in this chapter that everything he mentioned was a direct command of God? And of course, no. The short answer is no, that he by permission was able to say some things. And yet he also believed, of course, as the next question is, that he believed that the things he had to say, that even though they were by permission, they were his opinion, if you will, his judgment, he also had the Spirit of God. And so that's question number 2. What did Paul think of that judgment? That he had the Spirit of God. When he wrote this, he was a mature Christian. You know, when mature Christians speak, they should be listened to. Now, does that mean that they're perfect? Here's a problem that I see everywhere. It actually is less of a problem in our culture for some unknown reason, but I see this as a problem in a lot of other cultures. And that is, especially, Wade, as it relates to the eldership, is that congregations want men who are perfect in order to be an elder. Well, guess what? Guess what those countries don't have? They don't have elders. Well, why not? Because no man is perfect. But that's not the qualification for an elder, is it? He doesn't have to be sinlessly perfect. But he does have to be mature. That he does have to be. Spiritually mature. And so that's what elders are. They're spiritually, not sinlessly perfect, spiritually mature. And so when you are spiritually mature, then when you say something, then you ought be listened to. You should be listened to. You might not agree with that particular individual. That could be their judgment even, and that's fine. But here's the thing, is that there's a little R word that Miss Franklin sang about, right? Aretha. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, right? Now, we need that more for all of our elders, older Christians, mature spiritually Christians. What that looks like is, I listen. Whether I agree or not, I listen. Mama says you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Right? Use your 2 ears more than use the mouth. That even goes, unfortunately, for the mouth himself. Sometimes I do when it's appropriate. I do. I really do. I don't like to, but I do. All right, number 3. Apparently, about what had the Corinthians written Paul? That's verse 1. They, of course, had written to him about fornication. This is chapter 7. As you go through all of the chapters, almost all the chapters in 1 Corinthians, you will have this recurring situation. Apparently, they wrote him about several different issues that they were having. And so 1 Corinthians is a response to the questions that they had concerning the letter that they had written to him. So now concerning this situation, okay, you wrote to me about this, now concerning this. Guess what we have in chapter 8? Now as concerning things that are offered to idols, okay? So he's going down, he's got his honeydew list. Do you see that, gentlemen? Do you see the honeydew list? Tommy knows what I'm talking about. Love you, Elaine. He's got his honeydew list, okay? And he is ticking those off as he goes down. Number 4, what was the suggested solution to the fornication problem given in the first part of the chapter? If you Don't want to commit fornication? Then guess what you need to do? Get married. To get married. I know we live in the Western culture and things are so skewed. It's like it's the pendulum situation, right? Is certain subjects are so taboo, you just can't say anything about it, because what does the world do? They're the very opposite, and they go just off the cliff on it. What does that do, especially for our young people? What does that do? It skews our subject at hand. Folks, what is our subject at hand? What is the subject? It's not just fornication, it's sex. Sex is the subject here. But we don't like to say that word. That's a terrible word. No, it isn't. It is not a terrible word. As a matter of fact, let me go further. It's a beautiful word. When done exactly how God wants it to be done, it's wonderful. It's great. Let me take it one half step further. Let me say this. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 in no way demeans the act of sex in marriage. It in no way puts it down. No man, let me put it this way, no husband or no wife should have to apologize because they want a sexual relationship with their spouse. Does that make sense? You should not apologize. That's a part of it. Because God put it in there. And so you don't need to apologize that you have this particular drive, and there's one person on the planet that can fulfill that. So you don't have to apologize for that at all, because God made it that way. All right, number 5. Does Paul indicate that the period of abstinence mentioned in verse 5 could result in harm if it were prolonged? And of course, that's the reason for marriage. One reason, not the reason, one reason among others. But a prolonged abstinence in the marriage could result in fornication. Now here's the problem. We didn't really talk about this last time. Is I'm going to wait and be cold sexually to my spouse so they'll mess up and commit adultery, and so then I can divorce them. God sees right through that. He is not. I'll put it this way. Okay, maybe one of you, if you were cold in that area and your spouse commits adultery in that situation because you refused, and you could have, I have to put that in there, you could have, you are just as guilty as that other person because you contributed to that. So don't play with the Lord. Don't play with him.
Is there something about causing someone to sin?
You know?
I know there is.
Oh yeah, there is. There is. You don't lay a stumbling block in front of your brother or sister in Christ, and guess what your spouse, if you're two Christians living together, guess what your spouse is a brother or sister in Christ. You don't put stumbling blocks. You help them. That's part of love, isn't it? It is. So just as, if you put a stumbling block, the Lord said, whoever causes one of these little ones to err, what about that individual? Yeah, it's a big deal. I'm going to put a millstone around your neck, and I'm going to throw you into the ocean. See what happens then. He doesn't play, does he? No, he does not. Linda?
You're not supposed to distance yourself from that unless you're fasting and praying.
There's a purpose, that's right. Right.
But other than that, you're not supposed to deny each other.
No,
Because like you said, it's a beautiful thing. God instituted it.
that's exactly right.
We know that everything God did is good.
That's exactly right. It's a good situation. And so we should help one another out and love each other. You know, when, again, can you do that outside of marriage? For basically have a sexual relationship outside of marriage.
You can, but you shouldn't.
If you want to go to heaven, can you? No, you cannot. Again, that's, God put some stipulations on that.
Right.
And so you have to meet those stipulations. But when you do, then that is a very, very good thing, as Sister Linda was just pointing out there. All right? Go ahead.
Is that part of what people are fulfilling the order that God said, go forth and multiply?
You go forth and multiply. Yeah. I don't know if that's what people are doing or not, but they need to multiply in marriage. That's where it's supposed to be. All right? Now, number 6, does Paul indicate that he is married or unmarried? Which one is he? He is unmarried. Paul was a single man, and he remained single. He said, I want you to remain even such as I. I would that all men were even as myself. It would be very difficult, hang on one second. It would be very difficult for Paul to do what he did and be married. I mean, he was gone for months and months at a time. Actually, even years, because, you know, his 3 missionary journeys, especially the 3rd missionary journey, you think about this, that he went all through Asia Minor and Europe, you know, Greece and whatnot, and then came back. But, you know, he lived in Ephesus for 3 years. Don't forget that. His 2nd missionary journey, how long was he in Corinth? 18 months. He was in Corinth for 1.5 years. That's 4.5 years right there. And so if he had, you know, a wife, family, and maybe he left them in Antioch because of all the, you know, the traveling at that time. A lot of people did it, but there also were great risks too. I mean, Paul did suffer 2 or 3 shipwrecks. I mean, total annihilation of said watercraft. That was a frequent situation, was it not? You know, a responsible husband wouldn't put his wife and children through that situation. So it would be very difficult. Philip, he was one who preached the gospel. He was married, had 4 daughters. But do we find him just going all over the world like Paul? No, he was in one relatively small part of Judea and Samaria. That's where we find him walking, being able to walk places, things like that. Okay.
I think you answered my question.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Ask it anyway.
Well, he wasn't super specific, and he could have just been talking about celibacy, but if he would have left his wife for all that time, then he's doing the exact same thing he said he shouldn't do, which is not have sex with your wife,
Right.
and here comes another kid. Right? So it
Exactly. Absolutely. It's very challenging.
makes total sense.
It's obviously it's different now. Chad, hang on one second. It's different now. You know, the missus gets to have a 2 or 3 week break every once in a while from me when I go to the other side of the planet. You know,
I see her smile.
yeah, she's smiling, see, and she's laughing now. We see how that works. Y'all are still praying for her, right? Okay. So travel now is very different, and so you can accomplish those things today that you couldn't, you know, back then. I love the airplane. It really makes things a lot nicer and neater and things of that nature and more possible. Chad?
Have you ever read or heard things that some people claim that he was married? That I think that I've read it on occasion
Mm-hmm.
that he was married, but I also think it was she left him or something like that. But I have read some things, but based upon what you see here, he doesn't even say
whatever the situation, if he got married before and she left him because he became a Christian, because that's what the other part of this chapter is also about. Is that a possibility? I don't think you could say that it wasn't a possibility. But when he wrote this, he was not attached to somebody else. He was single. He was single. He was unmarried. Or he was not married, I guess you would say.
He does seem though that he's the type of person when his writing, when something that he can use himself as an example,
Mm-hmm.
he will do so.
He does. He
And
does.
He doesn't go into that aspect in the latter part of the chapter.
Right.
Like I said, I just find it interesting, you do read that on occasions, that he was married,
Mm.
but it's not one of those things that fills up you read about everything, but it's just, I have read that, and I've often thought, he really doesn't, he says he's unmarried, single, and he doesn't really go into detail, and I just find that interesting in that situation. Like I said, this situation, you would think that if he was in this situation, certain situation, he would bring it out as a means to say, let me go further in my situation, here's what's happened.
Right,
So
exactly.
when I said, if your husband or your wife leaves you and you're not, that's me too.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say that.
Right. You're right.
I agree with you, it's possible though, but it's just kind of strange that he would not then turn around and use himself and say, here I am as an example.
Right.
Especially,
I would think, oh, go ahead, Drew.
especially later in the chapter when he's actually talking about.
That's exactly right. I think if, when he discusses that, an unbelieving, wife, let them stay. But if they want to leave, then your obligation is to the Lord and not to that spouse, unbelieving spouse. I think he would have said, this is my situation too. He would have said it in maybe a phrase, but I do think there would have been a phrase at least to indicate that was the case. Peter said, hey, I'm an elder just like you. It was a phrase, but he mentioned, I'm in the same situation. So, whereas we don't have every detail, and I guess in one way, we can't necessarily just assume that, but I also think that it's pretty fair to say that it wouldn't be as heretical to say that Paul was married as it is to say that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. That's heretical.
Yes.
Paul being married before and single now, okay, whatever. That's fine. But we just don't have any evidence, really, that he was. Linda?
Paul suggested at one point he remained as he was.
Mm-hmm.
But then he goes on to say, if you cannot contain yourself, though they cannot contain themselves,
Mm-hmm.
it would be better for them to marry than to burn. And that's not, it does mean at the final chapter of that. What I'm saying is that burn there means to burn with passion. Burn, it would be better to marry than to burn
Mhm.
with passion. But then at the end, that burn also means that you don't do that which is right in that.
Right.
You're gonna burn throughout eternity.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what I see what you were saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I definitely take that burning there as the flames of eternal punishment. I definitely take it as that.
But I was taught that.
Whether
Burning with passion.
if you're burning with passion, that only leads to one other kind of burning, and that is the burning of punishment in hell. So so that is true. That is the case. So I appreciate that very much. All right. Number 7. Number 7. Last question here on page 16. It is the Lord's will that the wife not depart from the husband, but if she departs, she should remain blank or be blank to her husband. All right. continue to be unmarried, or to be what? Reconciled, come back to her husband. So when you have a believing and unbelieving situation here in verse 11, then if she leaves, you let her leave, but let her remain unmarried. Because if she leaves, because for whatever reason that's not for the reason of adultery, and she marries someone else, what is she committing? She is committing adultery. What about the person that is married to her the second time? Yeah. He too is committing adultery, you see. And so that's a terrible situation. So I would that they would remain unmarried, or if it's even possible, be reconciled back to your husband. And the same thing is true for husbands. Husbands, you don't put away your wives either. So God's idea of marriage is this, that it's permanent. One man, one woman for life. That is God's ideal situation. And as much as is in us to do that, then that should be what we strive for. All right, top of page 17, number 8. What was Paul's advice about living with the unbelieving husband or wife? What was Paul's advice about living with the unbelieving husband or wife?
It could be that it may help the unbelieving spouse to become a believer.
Okay, very good.
But it also says that if, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but if they depart, then your obligation is to the Lord. And so even in marriage, even in the best marriage that there possibly is, each spouse, their first marriage is to God. Their very first marriage is to God, because that's a spiritual situation. And then they are married to each other. That's what makes that bond so strong. If you are first married to the Lord, then you can be married to one another. All right, so there in verse 13 is, and the women which hath an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. So what Paul is saying is, and you can imagine the situation. Paul goes to Corinth. He meets these individuals of all kind of different walks of life, okay? And he teaches them the gospel. Well, he is talking to a married woman, but her husband's not there, and she obeys the gospel. Well, my husband likes to go to the temple. And you know what that means, right? We talked about that already. He likes to go to the temple. Well, guess what? He's saying, look, if he's wanting to stay with you, then you just let him stay with you. Perhaps you can win him over, and he will become a Christian. But if, don't put him away just because he's not a Christian. So Paul is saying, look, just because your spouse is not a Christian, that's not a reason for divorce.
Talks about the children.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you stay. And if you do that, then you can help your husband, but you can also help your children as well. Chad?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw movement back there. All right. But if they do leave, then it's them that's doing the leaving and not you. Verse 15. But if the unbelieving depart, then you allow that to take place. Let them depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. So we are in this marriage relationship, and if everybody says, okay, let's get along, okay, regardless of personal issues or whatever, then we're going to do our very best to get along. In order that we might have peace, okay? Now, verse 14, which we skipped over, for the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now they are holy. Now, that doesn't mean that if the believing wife stays with the unbelieving husband, that he's going to heaven. That's not what that means. But it does mean that the believing wife can have an influence over the husband and also over the children as well. And so the children will learn how to grow up close to the Lord, and hopefully, she is shooting her arrows from that standpoint as well, trying to direct them in the right way. Linda?
And there has been good Christian mothers and wives that has led their husband to their example to the body of Christ.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that's a good point. I think it's a good thing. If you all can stay together, stay together.
Mm-hmm.
Both agree to stay together. And in that doing so, while you're living that Christian life, you're encouraging that person
That's right.
to become a Christian. And I think somebody in here had a Christian wife for years, been a Christian.
Uh-huh.
And it's obvious in her life
Yes.
that encouraged him over the years to start seeing things
Mm-hmm.
that caused him to be a Christian.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about.
I think I might know who you're talking about. We might hear from him a little bit later on, as a matter of fact.
That's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing that, we exhibit long-suffering patience with one another in our marriage, but also brothers and sisters in Christ, as well. So, Chad, did you have your hand up that time?
I think it's also interesting when you think about, even though, yes, I did this time,
Good, good.
that when you go back to the old law and about various things, like if you married a Moabitess, how that affected the children, the generations, and various
Right.
things like that occasionally. When something was not right in the marriage, that would affect the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. And but that shows you there's a difference between this law and the old law of Moses and the New Testament,
That's right.
the law of Christ.
Mhm.
It doesn't affect the children. In fact, it's a benefit if you have a believing spouse, even if the other spouse doesn't believe, that believing spouse can be a benefit
That's exactly
to the
right.
children.
Absolutely. Chad, speaking of that, I was reading today the newest Reason of Revelation. Did you see about the archaeological find in the prison?
I have not found it. I got it yesterday myself. I haven't had a chance to read it.
I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but it's very interesting how that, a long time ago, we're getting really close to the 1st century. They are digging up and having archaeological finds that the church looks exactly like the Bible describes, and the relationships that are in those churches, those congregations. It's phenomenal. And so we see some of those things, even in archaeology, how these things were lived out. I'll leave the rest up to you on that, not get too deep into it. Okay, let's go down to verse 26 and 27. Verses 26 and 27. Art thou bound unto a wife? I suppose therefore, there we go. Okay. I suppose therefore that this is good for the present distress. I say that it is good for a man to be so to be. That is to be single, by the way, unmarried. Verse 27. Art thou bound unto a wife? Seek not to be loosed. Art thou loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. So if you are married, then don't seek an opportunity to put your spouse away. Is that loving in any way when you are looking for a reason to get rid of your spouse? No, folks, that's not love. That's not 1 Corinthians love.
But if she or he commits adultery,
That's a different situation.
you don't consider that looking for a reason.
No, that's not looking for a reason.
Okay.
That is a reason
Okay, 'cause my
that is
Bible-
then presented to you.
My Bible just says, don't seek to be loosed.
Yeah, right.
If she commits adultery, I'm gonna seek to be loosed. See what
I guess I see what you are saying
yeah,
there.
you explained it, I'm good.
But the Lord gave that as the exception.
Right.
Other than that, don't seek that out. Don't seek an occasion out. And so if you are married, don't seek an occasion not to be married. If you are not married, then don't seek a spouse. Now, is that for all time? Is that for all time? If you're not married, don't seek a wife. Is that for all time? No, because what do you have to do? You have to go back to verse 26. And that's what our next two, number 9 and 10, are all about. Is verse 27 a rule for all time? No. Is verse 26 necessary to understand verse 27? Yes. For the present distress, this is the situation. Linda?
Okay, so if my husband, which I don't have,
Right?
and we were married for 35 years, we didn't have that problem, but if for some reason, if he had committed adultery, and I decided to take him back and forgive him,
Right?
would that be pleasing to God?
That's an excellent question. And we'll answer that next week. No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that.
Excellent, you got the music.
Yeah, she got the music on that. So Linda asked the question, if two people are married and one of the spouse committed adultery, and then the innocent spouse decided, instead of divorcing the guilty spouse, to take that spouse back and forgive them, is God pleased with that situation, the forgiveness and the taking back, instead of the divorcing situation? Yes, God would be pleased, because for you, for the innocent one, it is up to you. That's your judgment. And so you know the dynamics of your marriage, from that standpoint. So a lot of times adultery is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, right? That was that final straw. And so they have proved themselves over and over to be untrustworthy, unloving, things of that nature. So you follow through with, you're not looking for it, but the spouse has proven over and over that they're not into the marriage, and so they are to be put away. But it could be a situation of, it's not an accident, so you can't go there. But it could be a situation where there's deep regret over that. And so the innocent spouse sees that, and their love is able to be rekindled and take them back. Now, let me say one more thing, because I do not want to leave our assembly with, with this unanswered question, even though you haven't asked it. Okay, Linda, let's take it one step further. Let's say the innocent spouse takes that guilty spouse back, forgives them, right? And then a year later, the formerly guilty party has not done anything, Yet now the innocent one says, I'm going to divorce you because of your adultery. No. Right. What does forgiveness do?
Wipes it away.
It wipes the slate clean as though it never happened. So you can't sometime later look back and say, oh, I'm going to divorce you for what you did a year ago, even though I forgave you. No, it don't work like that. You can't do that.
Because that's not the way God forgives.
That's exactly right, because that's not how God forgives. How much fear would you be in if God forgave like that? I would be in severe fear. Okay? That would be terrible, wouldn't it? That would be awful.
So there is
Lauren.
reconciliation sometimes, even in the person that has committed.
Yeah, there can be. That is, yes.
That is the offender.
Right, absolutely.
But then the wife forgives and takes it back.
Right.
But she did not remember that and hold that against him.
That's right. You cannot hold, which is why it takes a very special person and a special situation to be able to take that guilty party back. It can happen, and you can have success afterwards. You really can, but it also takes a lot of work. A lot of work, has to go into that. Lauren?
You had read my mind. That was what I was gonna point out. Once you forgive, from my understanding, that you can't decide later, oh, yeah, I'm gonna divorce you because of that.
Right.
And I find it interesting how all of our examples of adultery are like the wife takes them back, and when he cheats.
That is so true. That is so true.
So well.
And he does, So, very good, very good. All right, we are going to stop on that. I think I've actually legitimately answered the question and also gone over that. So we'll start with a number 10 next Wednesday night, and do appreciate your kind attention. And we'll very quickly transfer over and have our devotional time.